Hello, this is Dr. Jeremy St. John, and today we're looking at Cliff Ragsdale's book, Spreadsheet Modeling and Decision Analysis, and I'm looking in Chapter 4 at Sensitivity Analysis. What I want to go over is the answer report. Now, the beginning of Chapter 4 uses the Blue Ridge hot tubs model that we used in the previous chapter, and so we're continuing that, except we're doing something different. We're looking at this answer report. I'm going to go to the Blue Ridge model now, and this is as it was set up before, except I don't have the non-negativity constraints in the model there. I'm just going to check that when I go to Solver and solve it. But this is as before. If you want to see the math model, it's on page 47. I'm going to click on the objective function. You can see the formulas in there up in the formula bar. And then I'm going to go to the data tab. And over here on the right, you see Solver. So I'm going to click Solver. So this is as before. The objective function is entered in at the top, D6. Max is, the radial button next to max is selected. And changing variable cells, those are my decision variables. They're in yellow. And constraints, I've got 3 constraints here. You can see the left-hand side and the right-hand side in the model. And I've entered the range of the left-hand side, that's those little powder blue down there. I've entered those 3 cells, D8 through D10, and on the right-hand side I've entered F8 through F10. So I've entered them together. Since the sign doesn't change, I'm able to enter them in together. If the sign changes, I can't do that. I have to enter them as separate constraints. But those are still 3 constraints. They're just entered together. And then you can see the checkbox down below, make unconstrained variables non-negative, and I've selected simplex LP. So if you're using a different version, you might have this checkbox for non-negative constraints somewhere else. You might have it under options, but you want to be sure to select simplex LP and make sure to unconstrained variables non-negative. So then I'm going to solve as before. I click Solve. Solver found a solution. All constraints and optimality conditions are satisfied. Looks good. Before we clicked OK, this time I want to, up here in the reports, I want to select Answer. That'll get me the answer report. And below it you can see sensitivity. I'd do the same thing to get the sensitivity report. So I'm going to click OK, just get the answer report this time. Click OK, and notice that it actually created a new worksheet down below and called it Answer Report 1. So that's the answer report for this solution. And you can see the solution. Let's look at that. 66,100 is my optimal, is the profit for my optimal solution. It's a max problem, and Solver wants me to make 122 Aqua Spa and 78 Hydrolux for that optimal solution. So here's the answer report. I'm going to click on it. And keep in mind, this is just a report, and it's really made more for management. I usually delete this stuff at the top. It talks about, you know, when it was created and the time. You might want to keep that. You can also modify all this stuff. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. If you go over here to View, you can turn the grid lines on. Do you see the grid lines? So it's got the grid lines. All this stuff is in cells. You can change it, delete rows, anything like that. I turned the grid lines back off because this is a report. This answer report is basically for you to show a manager or another decision maker, and it's kind of in report. It is in report form so that they don't have to look directly at the model. It tends to make a little more sense. But you go in here like any other report and you modify it as you feel, as you see fit. I'm going to go here to, and you can calculate other variables, but that's a more advanced topic. So first I have the objective cell, and you can see max. That points out that this was a maximization problem. It'll say min if it was a minimization problem. Under cell, I've got D6. That's where my objective function was, D6. And you'll see under name, you'll see profit. So let's look at those two first. D6 for the cell, that's objective function. And the name here is profit. I'm going to go back to my model. Do you see the objective function is in D6? That's got 66,100 in here. It's the purple box. Just above it, you see profit. Well, that's where Solver got, it pulled from this label. It went to the objective function because you told Solver where the objective function is. And it looked for a label nearby and it said, hey, that's the label associated with the objective function, profit. And it put it in there under name, profit. So sometimes Solver pulls a different label, the wrong one, or it doesn't make sense, or it's not so good for a report. It was fine in your model. So if you want to change it, you can go in here, click here, and we can change it to total profit or anything else. So you can change that because it's just a label that and it pulled it from the label in the model. So you can change it as you see fit. Then we have original value and final value. Well, final value 66,100. That was the solution for how much profit we were going to have with our optimal solution. So 66,100. Original value, we have nothing in there. What you sometimes have in there is a number, and what that number is the final value from the previous time that you ran this same model. So if a lot of times I'm in here running this model over and over again, and I might tweak this or tweak that to see if I can maybe improve the final value here. And it will show the previous final value under original value so that I can compare and I can say, no, I didn't improve it, or maybe I did improve it. So usually you want to make one change at a time. You don't want to make multiple, just one change at a time. And you go to the answer report and you can quickly see how that change affected the optimal solution, which was 66,100 in here. But since this was the first time I ran it, I don't have anything under original value. But just so you know what that is. Then I have variable cells, and those are my decision variables, B5 and C5. And you'll see under name, number to make Aquaspa, and number to make Hydrolux. Well, let's look at B5 and C5. Those are in yellow here. They're my decision variables. So, but number to make Aquaspa and number to make Hydrolux, what you can see in this model, I have a label, number to make, to the left of my decision variables, and then I have another variable label above the decision variables. I have Aquaspa above the 122, and I have Hydrolux above the 78. So Solver wasn't sure which label goes with it, so Solver took both of them and combined them. Number to make in A5 combined with Aquaspa in B4 gave me number to make Aquaspa in cell C21 of the answer report. So that's fine. Again, if I don't like that or it doesn't make sense, I can just put my cursor in there and change it, make it make sense. Because again, this is a report for another manager or decision maker to make it very clear. Original value, again, if this were the second time I ran the model, I'm sitting here tweaking it. Each time I run it, it will show any change. It'll show the final value for the decision variables of the previous run. That's what I'll have under original value. So I can easily compare it with the current run, which is under final value, and the current run has 122 Aquaspa and 78 Hydrolux. So those are my decision variables. Again, this data is the same as the model here under final value, but it's in report form, and it allows me to compare the current run with the previous run, which is nice because it's very common to make a tweak here, make a change there, and see how it affects the optimal solution. And I want to see how it affects the objective function and how it affects my decision variables. So that's what the original value and the final value are. I'm going to move down. Next, I have constraints. And cell D8, D9, D10 under cell here in blue, those are the locations of the left-hand side of my constraints where the formulas are. And under name, I've got pump, labor, tubing. And pumps, labor, tubing, Those are the labels I have on the left-hand side of my model, and it even pulled the colons there. You can look under, let's go back to the model. Do you see pumps, labor, and tubing here in A8 to A10? Those are for my three constraints. And you can see the left-hand side, LHS, it has 200, 1566, and 2712. So again, it took pumps, labor, and tubing. Those are the labels on the left-hand side. LHS it saw as a label above, didn't know which one to take, so it just combined the two. You know, I don't know if that's the best label. I can put my cursor in there and change it to only pumps, labor, and tubing. That would probably make more sense. But maybe LHS having that in there is okay too. Under cell value, those are the left-hand side values of the when I ran it. So I got 200 for pumps, 1566 for labor, and 2712 for tubing. Notice in the model, 2712 for tubing is the left-hand side, which is different than the right-hand side. Now the right-hand side is 2880. If I subtract 2712 from 2880, let's go back to my answer report, I would get 168. So 168, that constraint under status is not binding. So that what that means is I didn't use all of that resource, and so it's not binding. I have slack, and the slack I have is 168. In this case, it's feet, because that's what that constraint deals with, is feet, 168 feet of tubing. So as a decision maker, I'm looking at this report, I can say, wow, you know, here's a resource, tubing, and I didn't use all of it. I had a lot of extra. Maybe I don't need to order so much, save a little money, don't put so much money into this, or definitely it tells me right away that I can get a whole bunch more tubing, and it's not going to affect it because there's no slack there anyway. I didn't use all the resource. If I look above it to the pumps and labor, the status is binding with 0 slack. All that means is that there's no slack. I used every bit of that resource. So pumps, for example, the cell value is 200. Well, the right-hand side value was also 200, so I used every bit of the available resource. Labor 1566, that's the left-hand side value here under cell value. The right-hand side value was also 1566. I used every bit of that resource, so the status was binding and there was 0 slack. And that tells me these are resources where I used every bit of it. Maybe I can get a few more pumps or a little more labor, and if that's possible, I will, or maybe I want to consider doing it, but before I do it, before I go get it, I'll go run the model again and with the new values in there, and I'll see how does it affect the final value, because I might be able to add more of that resource and it not change my profit, the final solution at all. And I also want to see how it changed the number of decision values, variables, you know, how many aquaspawn, how many hydrolux to run. So in that case, when I run it with maybe a little bit more of one resource or the other, don't do 2 changes at once, do 1 change at once, I can compare the original value with the final value and see how it did. So that's the answer report. This is basically most of what you see is what your model's giving you, but there's some information you can glean from this, and it's in nice report form, and feel free to get in there with a cursor and change it, and you can add to this report. You can add formulas in other cells and make it pretty nice, but it's a report for presenting. And you can delete too. You might not want to, maybe you don't care about what cell it's in for when you report it, so you can delete that column B over there, those values. So that's the answer report.